everyone. This is the Agency Rocket Show, and I'm Liz Hunt.
I'm Chelsea Poppens.
And this is the show where we talk about everything there is around the chaos of running a creative agency.
And today we're going to talk about freelancers versus agencies, pros and cons of working with either, depending on what other variables you have going as a client.
Well, from a client perspective, then, let's say you have a brand project, because that's kind of the easiest one. What would be the pros and cons of hiring an agency versus a freelancer?
I think it depends on a lot of different variables. Like where you're at as a business. A lot of startup businesses or small startup businesses don't have a huge budget. It also depends on timeline, how fast you need something. If you're looking for like a business launch at a certain date and the timeline is crunched, you'll probably have a more expedited timeline if you're working with a freelancer because it's just them. You're not working with multiple parties. I think it also depends on, I guess, like not the quality, but sometimes, like I think, I'm not saying freelancers aren't quality work, but I think when you have multiple experts in that conversation and building your brand, you're going to have a much more polished experience and look with it.
Sure. So perhaps what you're saying is,
are you mansplaining?
No, because I am not a man, Chelsea. I am, how about this? Yes, and with a freelancer, oftentimes what you'll get is a single perspective, is kind of what you're saying. Is that kind of right? Yeah. Because I know, like, whenever we build out a brand as an agency, we build out not just a logo and a color palette and a typeface. We don't just build out the visual piece of a brand. We include brand messaging, and we include taglines, and we'll include a website, and we have like a whole dossier of discovery notes and brand positioning or brand archetype and all these things that get added and included. Because we're an agency and we have copywriters and we have brand strategists and we have a creative director and we just have a more comprehensive group of people and expertise on our, we have a team. We just have a team of people working on something on a project rather than a singular person working on something. So the output is going to be much larger versus a singular designer will often, not always, but often what you will gain, the outcome will be much larger.
I love how you said different perspectives because I think it is super important to have different perspectives and as a creative to be able to bounce ideas around. We've had designers in the past be like, I love collaborating with you, Liz, as like the creative director, because then, or like anybody, even like another junior designer or something, like just like multiple minds bouncing around ideas around naming, different names. We've had like our whole team get together just to like figure out a name for a business because like obviously we're trying to stretch our scope of what we can think and perceive and come up concept. And then we're trying to shrink it down into what fits best with the client and the business. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think like the perspectives is huge. Mm-hmm. When we're in that ideating, and no matter what phase it is, I think that's what weighs the most when I think about like what we offer as DayCloud and when people come to us as like we're not just like slapping a name, some design together. You're getting like a team of like experts who have been in this like industry and have lived in this for so long, and they're handling your brand.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, I've been a freelancer before running DayCloud, I know that there's a lot of value in the work that freelancers can offer and do. It's just a different type of value and a different type of work. and like just like a different outcome that they can produce, right? And so like, when it comes to a freelancer doing the branding, like you mentioned earlier, Chelsea, a lot of times they can do things faster because it doesn't have to go through so many layers of people and so many experts, and so many people on a team. So they can a lot of times get things done quicker. And also, a lot of times they are really great for startup type businesses because when it comes to agencies, we carry a lot of costs. And so there's a lot of overhead. And a lot of times our economics just don't align when it comes to like a startup business or a small business or something like that. And there might be a better match for a smaller business or for a startup, when it comes to like working with a freelancer.
Yeah.
For something like that.
Our price point has to be so much higher because we gotta keep people, pay the bills and keep the lights on. And, and those startups, it's not necessarily, I find with a lot of my friends who are starting up a business and they just need a brand. Yeah. It's not necessarily about like having a high quality product or like brand logo. It's about just having a logo or having a website or just like having a presence. And especially with people like, obviously there's levels to startup. Some people have a great business idea and they have the funding, they have investors, they have that backing, or grants or things like that. So they can pay high top dollar for agencies because they're expecting a large return on their investment for that. Yeah. But as for like small startup businesses, freelancers are a perfect match, like you said, for the economics of where they're at.
That sort of brings up an interesting point that I have discovered over the years about clients. Some people just innately value design and value what we do, and some people just don't. Some people are like, you cost what? And some people are like, I understand the value of what it is that you do. A lot of times it feels like when you're freelancing, you will run into more often than not people who are like, how much does that cost? Because for some reason, when you're kind of a one-man show or one-woman show, like I was, it's like people expect you to not be very expensive, or just like they think that the value of your services is not what it is. They're like, it costs how much for you to do my logo? I thought it would be like $200, And so that is definitely, I would say, a con of being a freelancer. People automatically see you as a low cost provider. And then to that end, I think as an agency, more often than not, I think prospects are coming to you and they typically have a better understanding of the value that you are providing, and they are expecting a higher dollar product, service. And I do think that is a pro of being an agency.
I will say, I think it's come a while. I think it's come a very long time since I've been a freelancer.
Yeah.
But even just talking to some of my friends, like one friend is like, oh yeah, when we got our logo, we paid like $50 on Upwork to some guy in the Middle East. And I'm like, did you hear what you just said? And then like my old coach, she was talking about like their business stuff. And she's like, we usually just go to like Fiverr and like pay something like really cheap to get this done. Yeah. And so like, I think even just like as a freelancer, if someone is undercutting you on cost, it's pretty easy just to be like, hey, you can find whatever logo on Fiverr for like $50, $100. That's actually the range that you're like what you're expecting and the quality of work that you probably are going to get for that dollar.
Yes.
And it's much easier to back your decision in like kind of saying no in a helpful way to be like, I'm still ideating, I'm still creating out of like almost nothing.
Yeah.
And you're paying for my creativity, my imagination, my expertise on these platforms. And like, I'm going to give you a high quality product, but if you want something less, go for that guy in the Middle East.
Yes. Yes. The thing that is super tricky in the design world is oftentimes a lot of designers just across the nation and across the globe can be super offended by designers who offer services like that, you know, $20 for a logo, selling it on, you know, Fiverr, Upwork, things like that, right?
Yeah, I could see. I mean, if you're in the Middle East and you're just working for $1, I get it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like not very like designer of me, you know. I am even like the president of my chapter here, of AIGA. So I'm going to say something that's like probably super controversial, but we're all just trying to make it. And there are going to be designers in the world like this person who is doing it for the amount that they are doing it for. And to some of us, that is going to feel like, yep, they're undercutting us. But perhaps to that person, that's a lot of money. I just feel like it's not my place to judge whatever that person is choosing to charge. I think like it's my job to choose my own path, how much I'm going to charge and how much I think that my value is, and just not worry about what other people are doing. You know, like I do think that there's more than enough work to go around. I believe in having an abundance mindset. I think there's plenty of work for freelancers, and I think there's plenty of work for agencies. And I think the right clients end up with the right people.
I know that it was such a controversy for designers being offended by other designers who are doing it cheaper.
Yeah, it's a hot topic. There's been like open letters written by AIGA National to different like cities and governments who have done like those competitions, where it's like the city will do like competition of like, hey, we're having a free competition where people can design our city logo, and they'll just take entries. And they don't pay anybody, you know? And like AIGA will get, which is the National like Design Associate. Yes. Not AGA. Not AGA. But like they will write like open letters to, you know, all these, you know, places that do this kind of stuff. And they don't pay design because it undermines the value of what we do. Which that, you know, doing stuff for free is different than, you know, still getting paid something.
I mean, I feel like you're always going to have someone.
Yes.
There's always going to be someone who does it cheaper than you. And then there's always going to be someone that does it more expensive than you.
Yes.
But it's also that marriage between like, I mean, just based off of like some of my designer friends, like getting out of college, like you don't know your rate.
Yeah.
Like you don't have the confidence to charge a certain amount. And I've even told like, you know, our mutual friend, who is a graphic designer, we're like, she charges what? From like an agency perspective, we're like, that's really cheap. Like, I hope she keeps it. But then from a friend perspective, like I kind of want to be like, you should increase that.
Yeah.
For anybody but us.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. But we're going to use you a whole bunch because it's so cheap. So like we can use it recurringly. So she is going to make more because of it. Yeah. You know, so there's, I mean,
and she's going to get more experience because sometimes you gotta sacrifice some things in order to get into the right rooms.
Yeah. There's a lot of schools of thought around this, and a lot of people have opinions about it. And I think they're all very valid. And honestly, I don't know the right way to go about it other than like what I think and what we're doing. And I believe strongly in what we do and how we value ourselves. What other people do is honestly just like not my place to judge. Like you do you. People are going to value design or they're not. And if they don't, then I just won't take them as a client. you know, like they're just not meant to be my client.
Also,
and that's fine.
Most people don't understand what all goes into branding. They're
Not
like,
at
oh,
all.
like I just need a logo.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, it's way more than that. Like even some of my friends that like I've helped out with on things, I'm just like, I was like, I just talked about branding to some of my friends about like the price points of things. Oh, so you don't really get a whole lot for that. And I'm like, I was like you get a logo and logo mark in every format. Do you know how long it takes to save those things out? Or like, and you get typography, you get like content, you get like social stuff and explaining the package. But like, it's almost like a foreign language to most people because they're like, it doesn't sound like a lot. Yeah. Because they don't know the work that it takes to get to these different like concepts, mild, medium, spicy, that like the time that it takes to create, because maybe they're not a creator in that label of things. Yeah. The friend I was explaining, she's a nurse, and so she barely knew how to unzip a file. But like,
there's a really famous female designer. Her name is escaping me right now, but there's a really famous female designer who created the Citibank logo, the one, or City Insurance. It's the one with the umbrella over the city word. You know, it's the umbrella, and then the T is like the umbrella staff.
I think
Anyway, she has this thing that she says, so like people would question, like, well, why do I have to pay you, $100,000 or more to design this logo if it only took you 30 minutes? And that's when she says, well, 30 minutes plus 32 years of experience to do this, And so that's kind of the thing, I think, too, is like, you're not just paying for time. You're paying for the value that we bring to the table and the expertise and the experience and all those things.
That flashes me back to like basketball when I was training, and that guy asked for a discount because he didn't about his ROI and his return on investment for his kids in this small group or whatnot.
Well, so tell the story. Tell a little bit more about the story. So you do basketball training with kids.
Yep. So for CKP athletics, I do small group private lessons, and I occasionally do like team skills. Outside of DayCloud, I do these like lessons and groups. Yeah. And there was a parent. I've had like really good experiences with parents. They usually respect like my resume, my experience and things. Right. And this one guy like calls me up, referral from somebody else. And he's like, he's like, yeah, you have a really good like experience and
playing professional basketball?
Playing in the WNBA. He didn't say anything. He just said, like, your resume is pretty good, but since you're double dipping into my girls has like twins. Since you're double dipping into my twins, I kind of expect a discount. And I was like, sorry, sir. Like, I don't charge that much compared to everybody else in the industry because I don't want to work with privileged kids. I want to work with the kids that are like, they just want to build their confidence.
Average
and
kids. Yeah. Yeah. And you charge like $30 or something, isn't it?
30 a person for small group. I'll tell you my rates and you'll be like, oh, it's super cheap. Yeah. And then my private lessons are like $75. But when I tell you, I pay like $25 an hour for court fees, and I'm only making like $50 off of a private lesson. Yeah. For one girl. And you're asking for a discount. And I'm like, it's kind of a slap in the face because it's like, and I explained that I'm like, I still have court fees and gym fees, whether I give you a discount or not. And so I'm not going to give you a discount. And so then he had the audacity to ask me the very next day if you could get, he's like 2 for $50 or 2 for something. And I was like, no, like, absolutely not. I come from a generous heart. Yes. I had a small group that was going to have like 10 people in it. Yeah. So I was like, all right, this is one where I know I'm going to make a profit. My margin is like fine between the court fee and how many kids. And I was like, if you want to come, I will I can give you this like discounted rate for this like one small group that you join. Yeah. And he's like, well, it doesn't sound like I'm going to get my return on investment, my ROI on this. And I was like, the ROI is how bad your kids want this. Like, more than you.
Oh
Like
my
the
gosh.
ROI is how much work your kids like put into it. It has to be
Yeah.
internally motivated, and you have to like, yes, it matters who you surround your kid with as far as coaches and like mentors.
Oh yeah.
But like, it's not at the end of the day that like, just because a kid is around me doesn't mean they're going to be a D1 athlete.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I am not going to be the variable that makes or breaks whether your kid is a D1 athlete and gets a full ride scholarship. What's going to make or break it is your kid and how you like fill them, and like enable them, empower them in that sport.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
And so that was like, I did not reply to him.
Yeah.
Because every conversation I had with him was offensive. And so that's
Seriously.
just one of where I was like, I'm not a good fit. Like we don't need to interact.
I get this. Yeah. Goodness. Yeah. Not a good fit.
Not a good, most professional way. I don't think we're a good fit. We have different communication styles.
Yep.
I look forward, but he said all of these things, like one on the phone, but most of them were like over text. You know, those people that hide behind their phone and things. Yeah. And I would just really love to have like a face-to-face conversation so I can look them in the eye and be like, do you hear what you're saying? Yeah. And with a smile on my face.
Yeah. Like, I'm a human being, bro. Like, what you're saying is really mean. Yeah, it's super offensive. Stop.
I remember calling you and I was like, Liz.
I know.
Absolutely livid.
Goodness.
Good times.
What are some other pros and cons of agencies versus freelancers? So we've talked about expenses, right? Like, well, okay, so let's talk about that one. Being a freelancer is significantly cheaper. Your cost is cheaper. You can do it out of your house. You don't have to have like, you know,
a facility or not a facility, office.
Yeah, an office.
Physical brick and mortar.
Yeah. Which if you're an agency, you could technically be remote. We have several people at our agency that are remote. So, but yeah, agencies I think have the majority, like I think a lot of them oftentimes are like in an office.
I think it also depends on if your clients are coming into the office or they need to come into a specific, like if depending on the professionalism, a lot of clients who are spending top dollar want to have a top dollar experience and having them come in and be treated.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, treated well and catered to is a part of that experience.
Yeah. Actually, that is such a good point, Chelsea, because that's another thing that I think is a big difference between agencies and freelancers is that with an agency, you oftentimes have someone who is 100% dedicated to relationships with the client, to like making sure that the client is happy, satisfied, taken care of, communicated to, managed, expectations are managed,
has
all that
snacks stuff. And beverages during our 2-hour discovery meetings.
Yes. And deadlines are managed, deadlines are communicated, budgets are managed.
That they sometimes get Christmas gifts.
Yes. Or, you know, like that invoices are sent right away and like contracts are signed right away. And if there's an issue that it's not you who's also doing the creative and have to have meetings with them, that's having to have, you know, awkward money conversations with the client, you know. I do think that is something that agencies have a big time leg up on for freelancers. And I remember those days, like feeling super awkward when I was like, hey, you need to pay me, you know, and then showing up, you know, a couple days later, having to be like, let's talk about your gorgeous creative that I just made for you. You know, oh, we're best friends, but you haven't freaking paid me yet. I remember that, you know, like it being pretty awkward. So awkward.
You've made comments about that in the past where it's nice to have an accounts receivable collecting the invoices and like managing the legal side of things. Yeah. And then like having that separation between like designers and like, I think I've learned so much being a project manager and having to have those conversations still. But I think for me, it's a little different because like they still see me face to face in the meetings, and like they're still a part of the good things and the exciting things. But at the same time, I'm like, hey, we also haven't received this, so we're gonna have to put things on pause. Like, oops.
Yeah, that's true. There are times that I still have to have those difficult conversations, but it's a lot fewer. You know, being a freelancer, it's like you have to have every single one of those difficult conversations. And I think that can be pretty tough, you know, so tough. In fact, that back in the day, I created an alternate ego.
This tracks. This makes so much sense now.
I know. I created an alternate ego, and it was definitely a man so that people respected it more. And it was like a totally different, like I created a whole new email.
Was his name Chad?
No, his name was Bill. Because I was like,
that's actually a pretty strong white Caucasian name.
Yes, exactly. That was the whole point, was like, what is the most like middle-aged, white, boring accountant? Yes. Like Caucasian male name.
Bill at Studios.
And it was like accounts receivables at DayCloud Studios, and I would sign it as Bill, and I would never use an exclamation point ever. And I would just be like the most cut and dry ever. I would just like channel this.
You owe this at this date. End of story. Period.
Like, yes. I would be like, here's your invoice. Let me know if you have any questions.
Regards.
I wouldn't say anything. It would just be like, bam. And oh my God, I cannot tell you how freeing that was, because
That's the best thing I've ever heard. The best piece of advice, if you take it from this podcast as a freelancer, is to create that alternate like alias.
Yes.
Yes.
Dude, it was so freeing for me, because then I could just show up to the meetings and be like, oh, I'll let our accounts person know.
Make them think that there's more people backing you.
Dude, it was so awesome. And I could be on the phone and be like, okay, yeah, you know, like, oh, I'll take a look at the invoices and then let our accounts person know what the problem is.
But also make sure you have a very strong therapist before the multiple personalities take over.
No, Chelsea, I don't have I am just good at compartmentalizing, okay?
You're just like, hey, Bill. I love that. I mean, it's so smart, but insane at the same time.
I know. It is really insane. You know what, though? You do what you have to, okay? Like, just trying to live.
I think it's brilliant.
So, there you go. There's a really good tip for freelancers. So you don't have to have the difficult conversations. That's brilliant. Mm-hmm.
So we talked about cost, timeline. Yes. There's so many people that have to touch your project, and it's a much larger like scope and deliverables as far as copywriting. Got to have a copywriter. If it's a website, developer, designer, a project manager. That all of that timeline expanded because there's a lot more hands in it.
Yeah.
A freelancer, they're usually dedicated to a small amount, smaller projects.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be able to churn things out a bit faster than an agency sometimes. Mm-hmm. Not to say that there's not times where we've really expedited something on our side of things, but
it's part of the job.
But we also like charge a bit more because of the expedited, like, oh, we need this immediately. Sweet. So we have to drop all these other projects in order to prioritize yours.
Yeah. I do think there is one other way that a freelancer like wins over us, in that they just don't have employees, you know, like no matter what, they are always going to have that ownership mentality, you know, because they literally own it. Like they always own it. They own everything. They own every project, you know?
Yeah. They stamp their name on everything.
Yes. And, you know, having that mentality for every project, I think, and not having to worry that someone else on the team maybe is like not going to see it through, or not going to see the follow up, or, you know, or not going to follow up, or not going to like give the results the very best effort and the very most energy. Like if you're a freelancer, that you are going to do that because it's your name on every single piece of work and every single outcome.
On the flip side of that, as an agency owner, do you ever experience that maybe in like designers who are employed and it's not like their company? Do you feel like they slack, but like they don't perform as well as if it was just like their name on like everything? Like,
absolutely. That's every employee on the planet. There's always going to be a day, or, even the best employees have bad days, right? We have bad days, but every employee, they're not owners. They're, at the end of the day, they are employees, and it's not their name. There is a lack of like desperation that you and I carry that they just can't possibly have, that we have, because we own it,
I will say that I've always kind of been this person that if I'm going to do something and my name's on it, it has to be quality. I think it kind of drives from being at Iowa State and having to like be in front of everybody and like perform much more. But like, I find like even if I do a camp, it has to be like for like basketball. I'm like, if I do something, it's going to be good. It's going to be to the like the kids are going to feel like they got something out of it. I'm not just here to collect, and
yes. But again, that's your business. It is your business.
Yeah, but I think even with before I was a partner at DayCloud, I still stepped in and I was like, all right, so if I'm going to be a part of this organization and if I'm going to be able to sell things to clients like for this organization, I have to believe in it. Yeah. And I have to see the quality. And like, because there's been companies I've worked for in the past where I'm like, I don't know if I want to sell anything for like, I don't know if I want to sell anything for this company because I'm not sure that it has my mark of approval. And I'm not sure that I really want to stamp my name on this. Yeah. And I've left companies because of that. Yeah. Yeah. So like you have always had an ownership mentality. Most people don't. That's pretty uncommon. That's also why you're a partner now, because you've always had that, and I'm not saying this is a blanket statement. Most people are employees and they're happy to be employees. And that's great. Like, that's what we need. We need people like that, like not everybody can be an owner, but what I'm saying is like, there's a difference of mentality, and that's okay. Like that's what we're here to talk about, that's who we're here for, is like, we are talking about and to people who are running creative businesses. And there is a difference, and that's okay. And I think like when you are an agency owner and when you are a freelancer, like you are always going to have that mentality. You're always going to have that ownership mentality. And with a freelancer, you don't ever have to worry about, does my team carry that mentality, or is my team going to perform at the level that I need them to? Whereas an agency owner is always going to have to be like, think about those things, they're always going to carry that, not just financial overhead cost, but that emotional overhead cost. That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we covered everything as far as like timeline, the quality, budget. I think those are the main kind of like considerations when you're picking between like a freelancer and an agency, the pros and cons of both. You as I got to weigh those things and figure out what's best for you. Yeah. But I hope you learned something today and that we were able to help you wherever you're at, whether you're a freelancer or a client or wherever you're at. Thanks for listening. Yeah. If you like our content, like and subscribe, or send us questions. We'd love to answer any questions about running our own agency. Our email is show@agency-rocket.com. All right. Thank you. Bye. I don't know why I did that.